Hi, this is Getting to Know the Laboratory, Laboratory 2 for your biology class. The first piece of laboratory equipment you're going to learn about is the Erlenmeyer flask, something used for mixing liquids by swirling around without the risk of spoilage. It's also suitable for boiling liquids without the solvent evaporating away. You'll notice it has a tapered body with a narrow neck, and there's a picture of the guy himself, M.L. Erlenmeyer. Next, you have a piece of equipment called a water bath. It maintains water at a constant temperature. It's a bath. We use it in microbiological laboratories for incubating bacteria or other samples of things, or when you don't want to directly apply heat to something and you'd rather have it sitting in a liquid heat. Some of them also have components that let it shake and stir things so things don't settle to the bottom. Next, you have what's called transfer pipettes. These are droppers, or they're also called Pasteur pipettes. They dispense drops of a liquid. They're not a precise measuring tool. You can estimate about 20 drops will make about a milliliter of a liquid. The rubber ones we have in the top picture can't really be sterilized after using. They're disposable. The bulb is too narrow, and the heat and pressure required to sterilize it would melt the whole thing. So they're disposable. Sometimes we'll use things known as forceps, although they can also be called tweezers, tongs, pliers, or clamps. They're useful for picking up small objects when your fingers would not be appropriate. Test tubes hold, mix, and heat small quantities of chemicals. They can also handle and culture live organisms like bacterial samples. Out in the professional field, some come with pre-made components like these blood tests. At times you'll use a thermometer to measure temperatures. Most thermometers you get these days are alcohol, although you might find old mercury thermometers, although mercury is unsafe and they've mostly been phased out. And there are digital ones as well. We don't use it in the biology laboratory, but you should be aware of a Bunsen burner. Using natural gas, it makes an open flame, which can be used for heating, sterilizing, or combusting, that is, burning things. In any laboratory you're in, you should know where the main gas switch is. That's a good safety practice. Graduated cylinders are measuring tools for precise measuring of liquids between 10 milliliters and 100 milliliters. There are also really big 1,000 milliliter ones. They're in the shape of a cylinder. The graduated part are the little markings, the gradations. A ruler measures short distances. We'll use these a couple times. Notice that they have English units and SI, or metric units, on the other side. Test tube holders are a tong-like device for holding one test tube. Mortar and pestles are famously known as a symbol of pharmacies. We won't use them in this class, but you should know that they're used to prepare substances by crushing and grinding them into a fine paste or powder. The powders have an increased surface area, so they can dissolve away faster into a solvent. Also, the material of porcelain prevents stains and helps clean them easier. Now, we already saw the disposable pipettes. This is a different kind called a micropipette. Micropipette are useful for transferring small amounts of liquids, much less than a milliliter, not even a half a drop. These are finely tuned, very precise instruments, so they're very expensive. And they have disposable tips to use with different liquids. The liquid shouldn't go up into the pipette itself. It should stay in the tip. Then the pipette pumps are not as refined as the micropipettes, but they're used to create a vacuum, and it sucks liquid up into a glass pipette tip. In the picture there, you can see the glass tips are not the disposable kind. Those kinds have precise little markings to measure exactly how much you're measuring. The pumps go up at the top. Then the actual pipette piece itself Again, this is different from the micropipettes, which are used for small amounts, and different from the transfer pipettes, which are disposable. These precisely measure small amounts of liquid, but in conjunction with things like beakers or graduated cylinders, you can move around the liquid after you've sucked it up using the pipette pump. Then you have hot plates. It's pretty self-explanatory. The electric heating element heats up glassware or other components. Some of them, like in the green liquid in the picture, you can see a small vortex. They have magnetic stirring capabilities. A magnet goes into the beaker, and there is a magnet in the hot plate that rotates, and so the two magnets spin around each other, and it stirs the liquid in the hot plate. An incubator is a way to keep things warm. It's not an oven, but it keeps things just warmer. Incubators are useful for creating ideal conditions for microbes and other microorganisms to grow. Safety glasses protect your eyes from live specimens like microorganisms, chemicals, or other broken lab equipment. If there's glass that breaks, it protects your eyes. A fume hood is a ventilation device. Just like over a grease stove in a restaurant, it sucks away fumes, vapors, dusts, or airborne hazards. Now, we are going to use a ruler, but we also may see a meter stick in our labs. It's a meter longer. It's not a yardstick, it's a meter, and it's divided into measurements of decimeters, centimeters, and millimeters. Sorry about that extra S, there's a typo in there. Then beaker's a muppet, we all know, but it's also a simple piece of glassware for stirring, mixing, and heating liquids. There's a little indentation on the lip to help with pouring. Stirring rods, a piece of glassware used for stirring chemicals or other liquids. Now, when you work with a lot of test tubes, you have to stay organized, and test tube racks help with that. It holds and supports test tubes in an orderly fashion. Digital scales or balances are compact, durable, and like other precise instruments, they're fairly expensive because of the precision of measurements they can do. Some have what's called a tare option. If you put something on there, say it weighs 5 grams, the reading will say 5. If you hit tare, you can ignore those first 5 grams and then measure the addition of another weight. And say you had to measure 2 more grams of a chemical. The tare button would help you reset the measuring to 0. When using a Bunsen burner or other open flames in a laboratory, a striker is a preferable tool. Matches have wasteful little wooden tips and booklets. Lighters are filled with butane, and now you have an open flammable gas. The old-fashioned flint and steel doesn't make waste, is very easy to reuse, and is not a chemical that you have to worry about storing like butane. So that's our slideshow on the components of the laboratory. Thanks for watching.